Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. Mr. Allington, can you lead us in a flag salute?
Good evening, Madam President. Yes, thank you very much. Will everyone please rise wherever you are and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Allington. May I see who is present? Vice President Ramirez?
Present.
Clerk Cabrera?
Present.
Board Member Magaña? Present. Board Member Uribe?
Present.
And I'm present as well. Okay, I would like to call on legal counsel.
Yes, thank you, President Gutierrez. This is for members of the public who may wish to provide public comment in real time during tonight's meeting. We direct you to the instructions under item 7 on tonight's agenda. Please ensure to provide public comment at the designated time for public comment by dialing 323-887-7900, extension 2494, or by clicking the raise hand button on the Zoom application, or dial *9 to raise your hand from a phone. If members of the public dial in telephonically and the line is busy or goes straight to voicemail, please hang up and try again. Public speakers may choose but need not identify themselves to the Board of Education. However, if any follow-up may be required, providing contact information is encouraged. Accordingly, members of the public should be prepared to identify themselves, provide contact information, and the agenda matter they wish to address. Further, the board may limit the overall time of public comment to no more than 30 minutes or limit the time per speaker to 1 minute for purposes of efficiency to ensure the district can carry on with its business as agendized. Again, for further directions and information, please refer to item number 7 on tonight's agenda.
Thank you, legal counsel. At this time, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So
Motion?
moved. Oh,
I heard two at the same time. I think that was board
Ms.
member.
Magaña.
Okay, and then can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Perfect. Roll call vote. Vice President Ramirez?
Aye.
Clerk Cabrera?
Aye.
Board Member Magaña?
Aye.
Board Member Uribe?
Aye.
And that's an aye for me as well. That motion is carried. Dr. Garland, are there any modifications to tonight's agenda?
Good evening, Madam President. Yes, there is. Item 7C, page 1, and 9A2 were revised. Copies have been provided to you and copies have been uploaded to the website for the public. Item 9A8, a copy has been provided to you and a copy has been uploaded to the website for the public.
And President Gutierrez, we do have another modification to the agenda. I have been directed by Dr. Scavorna to pull line item 9A-8, and it will just be temporarily tabled to the next board meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Garland, and thank you, legal counsel. Is there a motion to approve the agenda with the modifications as indicated by Dr. Garland and legal counsel?
Motion.
Is there a second? Okay. Roll call vote. Vice President Ramirez?
Aye.
Clerk Cabrera?
Aye.
Board Member Magaña?
Aye.
Board Member Uribe?
Aye.
And an aye for me as well. That motion is carried. At this time, we're gonna go item number 4, presentation, A through G high school requirements. I would like to call on Dr. Yuan.
All right, good evening, everyone. Hope everyone had a great winter break. Happy New Year. Let me share my screen. All right, so good evening, board members. Tonight, we will revisit the 2020 decision to align high school graduation requirements with the A through G requirements. This will be a presentation to the board, and staff is here to answer any questions or take in any requests and come back at a future board meeting with additional information that the board may need to make an informed decision if that's what the board would like. Joining me today is Ms. Leticia Alvidrez, Director of Educational Services, and also Ms. Teresa Granados, Assistant Director of Educational Services, who will help present and also answer any questions the board may have during this presentation. Also, typically when staff brings an item to the board for some type of action, staff provides a recommendation to the board. Since tonight's board presentation was agendized at the request of board members, we don't have a formal recommendation. However, if the board wants to hear staff's input, we are ready to provide that input as well. We also developed this presentation so that it is presented as neutral as possible, providing the board with data and updates so you can make a determination on your own based on your own analysis. So the purpose of this presentation is to revisit the February 19, 2020 board action that approved the alignment of MUSD's high school graduation requirements to the A through G requirements. In order to be accepted into the University of California, UC, or the California State University systems, students must complete 15-year-long high school courses with a grade of C or better, and at least 11 of them prior to the last year of high school. And there's a concern that the alignment of our high school graduation requirements to the A through G requirements may make graduation less attainable for our students. So before we proceed, let's refresh our understanding about graduation requirements. I also want to share a little historical context with you regarding a resolution that was adopted in 2006, and then the board action that took place in February of 2020. So here is a matrix of the state mandated high school graduation requirements. It is the second column. Then we have the UC admissions requirements, which is the third middle column. And we also have the CSU admissions requirements, which is the fourth column. And then MUSD's previous graduation requirements, which is prior to the February 19, 2020 board action in the last column. So the state requirements are the minimum requirements. School districts can add additional requirements, but cannot go below the state minimum. Just for your information, starting with the class of 2029 and 2030, ethnic studies will be a graduation requirement. And fortunately for MUSD, we had the foresight to do what was best for our students to make ethnic studies a graduation requirement a couple of years ago. But as you can see in this matrix, the state minimum requirement do not align with UC or CSU requirements. So students can graduate from a California high school and also not be eligible for UC CSU freshman admission. So just to want to remind the board that these are two different requirements, high school graduation and CSU and UC requirements. Any questions so far about graduation requirements? All right, so moving on. To share a little background and history of the decision to align the high school graduation A through G, back in 2006, before all of us were even here, the MUSD Board of Education at that time passed a resolution to create K-12 educational equity that leads to a more rigorous high school curriculum for students. So the crux of this resolution read, that this planning began in September 2006 with the expectation that all students entering sixth grade in the year 2006 will be expected to be ready to access a college preparatory curriculum upon their enrollment in the ninth grade. And this was really meant for the graduating class of 2013. However, this resolution was never implemented due to transition of staff and just things that happened along the way. So during the 2019-2020 school year, we were asked to bring this item back so the board can take action on it. So we had a meeting in August of 2019 where information was presented to the board. The board requested more information at that time and asked that we collect input from stakeholders. Then we had a follow-up meeting in February of 2020 with the results from the stakeholder input sessions. The board ultimately approved the A through G alignment for high school graduation. Courses being completed with a grade of C or better, reducing PE from 3 years to 2 years, and then that the adoption will take into effect with the graduating class of 2027. Again, I'll pause for a second if there's any questions. Okay, so here is a matrix outlining the changes of those graduation requirements, and the changes are in red. So if you notice, math went from 20 credits to 30. World language and visual and performing arts are separated. PE went from 30 credits to 20. And then, of course, electives decreased because more of the courses are in the A through G. And then finally, the passing grade went from a minimum of a D to a minimum of a C.
Dr. Ewan, I have a quick question before you proceed. I'm sure we have a lot more data, but Dr. Garland, actually, could you give us a number of special ed students that would also have to comply with the A through G mandates?
Yes, ma'am. The students that we have currently that are seniors on diploma track are 579.
Okay, and this is special ed population only.
Yes, these are all the students that are identified in special education and are on diploma track,
Okay.
not the completer group.
Okay, thank you for that information.
Dr. Ewan, I believe our member Magana has her hand raised as well.
Yes, go for it.
Sorry, Madam President, I have a few questions. So just to clarify, Dr. Ewan, when we're saying we need 40 credits of English and 30 credits of history, or let's stick to English and let's say math. To clarify, we're not just talking about any English class, we're talking about specific English classes that our students must complete in order to meet the graduation requirements?
Yes, so with the A through G alignment, these classes need to be A through G approved by the UC and CSU.
And with that, have we looked into students that may not reach that type of requirement? For example, let's say our English learners. Do we have certain classes that will still satisfy that requirement, like that A through G requirement? Because I would hate for us to keep those students from graduating. So is there something that we're looking into to make sure that those students can also graduate?
Yes, as a matter of fact, earlier on this school year, we got approved from the UC 2 English classes that are geared for English learners, so that when they take those classes, they can apply them for this A through G requirement. One of them is accelerated English, and the other one is that 4th year of ELD that many of our EL students take.
Thank you.
All right, and just a refresher, these are general admissions requirements for UC and CSU. And if you notice, the SAT is no longer required or even considered for admission to UC, and then CSU has temporarily suspended the use of SAT for this academic year and next academic year.
Dr. Ewan, Claire Cabrera has a question.
Yeah, just a quick, in terms of clarification, since I know mentioning grade C or D will be coming up probably frequently, can you explain to us and just to everyone what a C means, maybe in terms of percentage or even like mastery? What does a C versus a D mean?
Yeah, so a C typically in classrooms is anywhere from a 70% to 79% of a score of an assessment. From a definition standpoint, it represents average. So it means like somebody who's just achieving, at grade level. So that's usually how it's calculated at a high school. When it comes to GPA, a C is often equate to a 2.0 or higher. So those are the things, those are the ways that we typically define a C.
For you, and then these are the minimum, correct? Students want to take more math classes or more history. They can do so via an elective for like private school admissions or just to strengthen their applications.
Yes, these are all minimums, and students can take any other classes they wish. They're open, but again, these are all minimum requirements. Just to give an example, even during the pandemic, when we reduced the graduation units, we still had students who went above and beyond the 130. All right, so there are also some other ways to fulfill A through G requirements along the same line with SAT. This is no longer applicable because it's been discontinued, but students who are in the advanced placement class, they can take the class. If they pass the test, they can get college credit for that. Or if they take any type of institution of higher education courses, those can be transferred as well for college credit. And so at the time of the February board approval, this was the implementation timeline. We would begin with the 2020-2021 sixth grade students. And that would be the first class to go through the A through G requirements. They would be the graduating class of 2027, which is the 23-24 ninth grade class. All right, so at this time, I'd like to introduce Leticia Alvidrez, our Director of Educational Services, and many of you may know her as a former principal of the ATC High School. She will be sharing the stakeholder feedback, some student demographic information, and achievement data with the board. And then also, as mentioned before, Teresa Granados, Assistant Director of Educational Services, is here as well in case you have questions about some of the data.
All right, good evening, President Gutierrez, members of the board and executive cabinet. So I'm here to share information regarding our stakeholder input, take a look at 2 years ago and then look at the present, and also data regarding college readiness and supports offerings in Montebello Unified School District. So initial input was received from over 400 respondents, which included and not limited to students and teachers, members of CSCA, and parents. And there were 3 significant findings that were shared with the board in February of 2020. And so there was math was considered to be a challenge, as well as maintaining a minimum grade of C. And then there was a suggestion to reduce PE credits to allow students to take other courses. Next slide. This year, we sampled a smaller group. We sampled counselors and high school principals. And we also have a parent meeting scheduled for tomorrow. And as you can see, the major findings reported remained, right? There's a concern about qualifying for math or with math, and the continued reduction for PE requirements to 2 years. But now the findings include the impact of distance learning. It also includes what the requirement for world language would look like if we increased it to 2 years. And then there was also shared was a need for greater support systems in terms of intervention and preparedness, and the evaluation of current data to determine the success of this alignment. Next. So the data review. So We are going to take a look at grades, graduation, A3G completion, and other factors. But before we begin with looking at this data, we wanted just to share with you an understanding of who our students are. So with a population of almost 22,000 students, the district supports 13% of students that participate in the special education program. Approximately 77% of our students qualify as homeless, and 1/3 of our students are English language learners. And 74% of our students qualify for the free and reduced lunch program.
Ms. Alvidrez, I have a quick question. Can we go back to the previous slide? Actually, Dr. Garland, maybe you can answer my question. I see that our homeless population has definitely increased. Can you also share previous numbers prior to the pandemic of our homeless population and foster youth?
Yes, ma'am. So in 2019, 2020, the number taken at the end of June was 996, and that had jumped up to 1440 end of the school year last year. Right now, we're hovering about 1,300, but we still have some that we need to identify. We're still in that process.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, next slide. So this table demonstrates graduation in A through G completion rates for the last 4 years. As you take a look at the information, you can see that we've remained steady at an average of 85% in our graduation rate, which is slightly higher than the state average. Pre-pandemic, when you look at the last column for UC, CSU, students meeting those requirements, we averaged 30% of seniors demonstrating college readiness. And during distance learning, there was a 10% decline. This is information from state and district assessments. So some of this data can be used as predictor variables to assess college readiness and preparedness. And the state uses some of this information to determine college and career readiness on the state dashboard. The first 2 items on this table is the STAR assessment in reading and math. This is the first year that we are administering the STAR assessment at the high school level. And as you can see, we have 21% of our students that are at or above the grade level in reading, and 34% of our students that are at or above the grade level in math. The third and the fourth line, excuse me, are 3-year results from Sbac in English and math, just for our 11th graders. You can take a look and we have 3 years of data. It was suspended in 2019-20, and last year in 2021, the district had an option to give a district assessment or a state assessment. The district continued to be consistent in terms of the data and provided students the Sbac assessment in the spring. Lines 5 and 6 provide you information with PSAT 10. Both our 10th and 11th graders take PSAT 10, and this is the 11th grade data. The first number will show our district scale score of 431 compared to the state score of 512. You can see that for 2 consecutive years in both English and math. The scale scores for the PSAT range from 160 to 760, just for your information. All right. So this is a lot of data, so I will pause there if you have any questions. Okay, next slide, Dr. Yoon. The following 2 slides will demonstrate passing rates in Algebra 1 and English. So the first column indicates the number of students who passed and compared to the number of students enrolled. So The second and third column represents this fall's results, which is the most current data that we have in terms of Algebra 1 passage rate. So we have students from 9th to 12th grade that are currently enrolled in Algebra 1, and this is their percentage passage rate from fall of 2001. When you look at the last two columns, you can use this information to compare this fall's passage rate with semester 1 and semester 2 of the previous school year. Give you some time to take a look at that. So as you can see, in all grade levels, there is an increase in passing rates for Algebra 1. Okay, next we will take a look at English passing rates, and this table is presented in the same manner as the preceding table, but it demonstrates English, English 9, English 10, and American Lit. Please take some time to take a look at this information. It's presented in the same way. Semester 1, 2020 is our most current data from fall semester in comparison to semester 1 and semester 2 of last year. And as you can see,
I have a quick question. Do we have any data on reasoning that teachers provide on why students are not passing either English or math? Is it the content? Is it students not turning in homework or assignments, exams? Do we have some data that shows us?
Currently, some of the information that I've received or input in terms of just with within the all program, attendance seems to be an issue with students, if they're not showing up to class, they're not receiving the information. Also the impact of distance learning, and just having a discontinued, just not having the in-person instruction. Dr. Yoon, did you want to add something to that? And I know.
No, we haven't done anything formal to get that data, so I don't want to put words in people's mouths. So, but whatever Ms. Alvidra said, that was from her interactions with the ALL teachers, and there's a good group of them out there.
Perfect, thank you. Clerk Cabrera, you have a question?
Yeah, along the same lines, I think it would be important to figure that out. So us taking a step to figure out why is it that our students are not passing? Is it, and even thinking not just about what's happening that specific school year, but is it that it's foundational skills that might be missing from middle school or even elementary school? So just, I don't know what that means in terms of gathering the data, but I think it would be important to have access to that information.
Okay, and we can provide that to you with our the diagnostic assessments that we have.
Board Member Uribe, you have a question?
Yes, Dr. Yuan, so we're looking at all this data and passing rates. I mean, this information is something that is not new to us, and especially as being a MUSD student myself, these seem like pretty similar rates to when I was in high school. So my question is, just kind of looking, say, at the past 5 years, has there been any drastic change in these numbers, or has it increased, decreased? I know that on the dashboard, we were always in the red. So I'm just wondering, is there any major difference in these numbers for Montebello Unified?
Yeah, so if you take away the pandemic year, it's been pretty stagnant throughout at least the last 3 years, minus the pandemic year. In terms of Sbac, there was a little bit of growth the year right before the pandemic, but it's been pretty stagnant.
And Dr. Yuan, just to add, and just for us as board members and policymakers, I think this data is important, right? For us to immerse ourselves in it, for us to be aware of what the numbers have been. And also being aware, like you said, this has been stagnant. This has been going on for far too long, where students are not meeting certain criteria, right? And I would move away from that deficit mindset to think it's the students, right? What is it that they're lacking? But rather look, Dr. Ewan, as our educational, as a department, to see what are the resources, right? What are the wraparound services that we can offer? How can we prioritize, and meet the students where they are? That's really important, just to get their feedback, right? Because ultimately it comes down to resources and programs and partnerships and collaborations. And having access to that is really important. So I would just encourage us to continue to work hard to get those resources and programs for our students.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up, Uribe. I was gonna wait to the end, but you brought it up. We're talking about, I saw some of the comments, Algebra 1, difficult. Algebra 1 is difficult. That's the problem. That's the problem. But I had this question our first year when we got on, what are we doing about it? Because this is the exact same numbers 3 years ago. And I understand we've had a pandemic, so I'm not gonna fault nobody. I understand we're in a different time. But the next class where these are gonna be implemented are 2 years away. So we can't use that as an excuse when we still have 2 years to prepare for those freshmen to begin with us. And so we're not discussing what we're gonna do yet, but I know they're there, but my mind is we're 2 years away before this even goes into effect for those 9th graders. So we can make the Algebra 1 not an issue in those 2 years. What do we need to do to provide our teacher support, our staff support, to ensure that Algebra 1 is not an issue, right? And so that's what I'm thinking about. And so hopefully in the next 2 years, whatever happens with the pandemic, hopefully we slow down, hopefully we go back to some normalcy. That's what I'm thinking about. So that's where I'm at with that comment that was there, that algebra is an issue. As a math teacher myself, that's really disappointing that that's what's being put at blame, because Algebra 1 is a very fundamental concept. And if we're not teaching our students these things, they're gonna have a difficult time in the future.
Yeah, and board member Ramirez, you mentioned that this is 2 years away, but Dr. Ewan, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't these students now currently 8th graders? Next year will be freshmen?
No, these students are currently the 7th graders.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Board Member Magana?
Thank you. So Dr. Yuan, what are we currently doing to help these students? Like what type of resources do our students have access to currently? And what other assistance would we be providing given that, let's say that the board moves in this direction, what kind of resources are we looking at to try to implement these changes and to offer that kind of support that our students may need in order to achieve, the Algebra 1 and to achieve higher percentages here?
Yeah, so some of the services and programs that we're offering include credit accrual or credit recovery. So this is available for students who fail a class. So they have an opportunity to make up that class after school. We also offer summer school for any student who need to either make up something or sometimes they even use it to get ahead. Right now, we have this ALL program, the Accelerated Learning Lab, and students who need the additional support are serviced in a smaller class size with focused instruction. And then we also have partnerships with ELAC, offering dual enrollment free for our students so they can take college classes. And finally, we actually pay for all the fees for advanced placement and in the past SAT and even PSAT. So if students do well on them, they can earn college credits and also earn their high school credits as well. So we are providing a lot for students. The other thing that we are talking with partnerships is adult school. We're talking with our adult school. There's tremendous resources there so that students can enroll concurrently outside of their high school day to enroll in a credit accrual class and have another opportunity either on an evening or on a weekend to make up some of those credits. Ms. Alvidrez, is there anything else that I missed?
I just wanted to add pathways. So for the California College Readiness Dashboard, that is one of the indicators that students are demonstrating college and career readiness. And so our pathway programs at all of our high schools definitely support the graduation requirements and meeting A3G requirements. We also have the opportunity for students who are possibly need to repeat a course and maybe cannot do it after school, that they, if there's room in their schedule, that they can repeat that course within their schedule during the school day. We have AVID, right, that also supports A through G completion and the A through G requirements and provides college preparedness and readiness for our students.
I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Alvarez.
The last thing I was going to add was just our counselors. We have a college counselor at each of our high schools. This year, our college counselors have been receiving training in Fafsa completion and providing a support with the college access team on site to also support our students.
I would like to add, as I see that we're already offering a lot of support, and I would love to see data and information as to why our students are not engaging in the support and how we can better present this type of help to our students so that they'd be more willing to participate and want to engage in this type of support in order to, you know, better themselves and be able to acquire, you know, those great percentages that we would like for them to achieve. Sorry, Board Member Ramirez, I know you've been waiting, but thank you. That was it for me.
Thank you. I noted that.
Yeah, I think for me, the supports, 3 of them are reactionary, and the other 2 are for a small group of students. After school, credit recovery, adult school, summer school, reactionary. The all program, small group of students, AVID, small group of students. We have hundreds and hundreds of students in math classes that are not taking advantage of the supports for whatever reason. And so as much as I believe that the supports are being effective, there are a large majority of students who are not being touched. And that goes back into the classroom every single day, Monday through Friday, periods 1 through 6. So while I would be more than happy to hear about more supports that we can bring in, I think our teachers need more support. I know we've talked about math curriculum and we've brought it in during the pandemic and we worked on these things, but we need to figure out how we can support our instructors to make sure our students are well prepared in the classroom every single day, periods 1 through 6. And I think that's where it's going to end up being, if this is what we're committing to in the future, to supporting the students, is how are we supporting the teachers every single day?
I also had an additional comment. So I know we've kind of paused here, but I couldn't agree anymore with Board Member Ramirez. You know, I think right now what we have is great, right? You know, it's wonderful to have these resources. It's great to have this, you know, accessibility. But once again, this is just for that minority. A majority of our students are struggling. There's other outside influences. There's other challenges that they're facing. There's other just, you know, consequences that they're dealing with currently with the pandemic. So it's important to look at not only like the micro and the meso, but also looking at like what's happening on the macro level, right? So here we are talking specifically about MUSD, but this is not unique to our district. I mean, this is something that we're talking about. Unless educational funding changes, unless schools that with historically marginalized students begin to receive more funding, there's not going to be a change, right? Unless people at the top begin to realize that there's been historical inequities and begin to address those, we're not going to have progress. We're going to remain where we are because the real issue at hand is not being addressed. So it's wonderful to have these resources, but we also have to be mindful, these are small groups that we are targeting. So how can we get creative, right? How can we be proactive? How can we either collaborate with what are other districts doing, right? How are they, you know, giving these students that opportunity to pass these classes and to have that diploma and to have that safety blanket so they won't be exploited, if they don't receive this diploma. So I think this is just for us as educators, food for thought for us to consider how we can get creative and offer greater resources that will target the majority, not the minority, because that's currently what we have and the data shows that.
Thank you, President. I really like that shift in narrative and even the language that we're using, because I think we can all agree that our students are extremely smart and capable, and we as the adults need to make sure that we're helping them reach their highest potential, right? So I think when we're thinking and looking at these numbers and we're thinking about the why our students are not passing, I think we should really consider also looking at positives, right? Like, are there any teachers that stand out as having had great success with their students? What is it that they're doing? What can we learn from them? And how can we share that with other teachers? So I would offer that as something that we should be wondering. Is it that the curriculum needs to be more culturally relevant, right? Is it that it's not really reaching our students, and just different ways of teaching? I know we have curriculum, but again, there are teachers that maybe have different activities attached to different lessons. And so just really also thinking about what there are successes, what is happening, where are they happening, what's happening, and how can we replicate that? So I would just offer that.
All right, thank you for the feedback. And then I do want to just add one more thing with regards to services. We do have 2 new partnerships, and you'll be seeing one upcoming board meeting for approval. We do have the Volunteers of America and also the TeleQ Foundation. Both of them have secured federal grants to come into our high schools to provide all things higher ed support, to make sure that a lot of our underrepresented students get the knowledge, get the experiences, and get the information they need to apply and also get into colleges. So we're looking forward to working with these 2 organizations. They're going to be working with Bell Gardens High School and Montebello High School to provide this extra support.
Madam President, it's Mark Scavarna. Can I have a few words here?
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
I've been listening quite intently to everything that you folks have been saying, and there's been a couple of statements that just scream at us. One of them, I can't remember which board member meant it, but somebody hit this and hit it right on the head. Foundational skills missing. You can look at all of this data, and that is something you're going to realize no matter how you dissect it or whatever you do. Secondly, the ALL labs, it took a pandemic to do that, and this district should have been doing that 10 years ago. It should have been realizing that the foundational skills issue will not even allow it to get to the point, and we're going to be chasing our tails. And if you listen to the dialogue from all of you folks here tonight, and a lot of the good thoughts that are coming out of this, it needs to be focused on remediation out of a lot of these issues, and very, very basic. Above and beyond that, every school site, every district, every school that we have has some great, great people that are turning this stuff around. Those are the people that need to be harnessed to basically help us turn this around. But it's all going to come back to foundational skills, I believe. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And so this might be a piece where can respond to Board Member Ramirez's remark about extending our services to all students, and the financial aid applications, including Fafsa and DREAM Act, are another indicator of college preparedness, not only for our students that are college bound and college intent, but also for our students that will enroll in a 2-year institution. So this table indicates 3 years of FAFSA completion for each high school. The FAFSA completion rates are updated every 2 weeks on the Race to Submit dashboard. And so we have 2019, 2020, 2021, and then as of just a few days ago, the completion rates for each of our high schools. Next slide, please. So all of our high schools have created a partnership with New Tech Network, College Access, to support FAFSA and CATA completion rates. ATC is in its 2nd year of this partnership, and Bell Gardens High School and Montebello High School, Shore High School, Vale High School have all started their 1st year of this partnership. Each school receives a coach, professional learning for their college access team. They've received a $6,000 stipend to provide student incentives, and each school has set up an aim based on the previous completion rate based on the previous completion rate. Currently, we are at almost 6% higher than last year in terms of FAFSA completion, and 5% higher than the state as a district. This is an area that we continue to monitor every 2 weeks, and we report to the college access team at all of the high schools. Any questions on FAFSA?
I don't have a question, but just as I'm looking at these numbers and thinking of students, being A through G compliant, and, just looking at these numbers, I think that they're extremely low given the student population. And once again, it's not to fault find, not to blame any individual school. But this is a very alarming, right? So if we're gearing students toward college, and our students, which are majority low socioeconomic, largely Hispanic serving institution, right? So historically marginalized populations, once again, and that resource, right? Having that financial ability to pay for that, that's going to come from financial aid. That's going to come from FAFSA. I know I myself wouldn't have gone through community college and Cal State if I didn't have FAFSA. And on top of that, I still had to pull out loans because it just wasn't enough, right? So as I look at these numbers and our student population, they are a bit alarming, because the reality is, if students don't have money for books and classes and whatever, so forth, gas and transportation, and I've seen this for myself as a community college professor, they drop out, because at that point they say, college is a luxury. I need to work. I need to provide. I need to survive. I need to support my family. So these numbers are just, like I said, they're very low. And this also will signify whether they'll continue or whether they will just go into to the workforce.
I just want to add, as working with school counselors firsthand, a lot of these numbers usually in the early Januaries are usually low, because school counselors are usually focusing on college applications during the winter time. And once they come back from winter break is where they put full speed ahead on working on FAFSA applications. So the good thing is that they still have until March 2nd to make up those numbers and increase the completion rate. So it's something that we can go back to the schools and strategize what we can do. Is it maybe FAFSA workshops? Is it parent workshops to help them understand what the FAFSA process is? So that's a good thing that we still have time for students, for seniors, to complete the FAFSA until March 2nd. I just wanted to add that little note.
Thank you. And all our high schools will be engaged in a winter convening with New Tech Network on the 27th of January to continue that FAFSA completion.
I'd also, if I may, I agree with both of my colleagues. I think there, for one, yes, we do get a higher number of students that have completed in March, and it is a very, I can say from my experience, when I graduated many years ago, FAFSA was definitely something that was very intimidating, very challenging. As a first generation Mexican American, my parents had no idea what I was filling out. And at some points they were just like, why are they asking you this? And like, I don't want to give them my social security number because, you know, they're not very trusting. And I think that as I've seen FAFSA change and develop, it's become a lot more user friendly. However, I don't think that it is as user friendly as it could potentially be. And I think that it is important for us to figure out as well, what is stopping our students? How can we, you know, get them to trust the system? How do we get their parents to trust the system, to help them you know, sign up their students and fill out these applications and meet these deadlines, and completely have them understand that this isn't something that is set up to steal from them or take from them, but instead to give them an opportunity. So I think it's important for us to investigate how can we better reach out to our students and make them feel comfortable in filling this out.
I definitely want to echo Board Member Magana, what you're mentioning. Just you hit it right on the point. Like a lot of parents, especially coming from low income Latino Hispanic families, when you ask them, hey, I need your social, or how much did you make in 2020? When did you come to the United States and California? A lot of those questions can be intimidating to parents, especially depending on their citizenship and legal status. A lot of parents get scared of releasing that information. So I just want to echo what Board Member Magana said. I think just educating our families on how this is for the student's future, that this is something you can trust. It's something that is secure. It is not something that's going to affect them, you know, security wise. So I just want to also mention that it's really important that we educate our families to not be alarmed if a FAFSA application asks for their socials. If they don't have a social, it's fine. It's completely fine. You know, asking them about their information, how many children do they have? It really asks a lot of detailed information that parents need to know why they are asking this. Board Member Uribe, you have a question?
Yes, Dr. Ewan, I'm just wondering, what were the rates, roughly an estimate for last year's FAFSA completion? Because I know we're looking at the early dates, but what were last year's?
So this is the slide for last year, last 2 years.
Okay, so, wow. I mean, there's still a lot of work. You know, I think these numbers still demonstrate, even after that deadline, right? There's still a large majority of our students who have not completed this, you know, extremely vital part of their college.
All right, these are the supports. I think we have discussed some of most of them in terms of how students are being supported to either accelerate or to make up credits. There was a point about students returning from distance learning in the pandemic. We have increased our academic, our social emotional counseling and support systems to help students as they return back from distance learning and transition into in-person instruction. We also have ROP, which provides students an opportunity to gain credits after school or on a Saturday program as additional support. And then just for your information, the list of our high schools with the number of counselors and the student to counselor ratio. Any questions? All right, and our last slide is this table includes our district's information regarding demographics. The middle column is our college and career readiness for 2019. And then the last two columns presents information regarding graduation alignment with A through G and policy on C grades. So it not only provides information for our district, but it also provides the same information for neighboring or like districts. give you some time to look at that information.
I have a question, Dr. Ewan. So I see as of 2019, career and college readiness for Montebello is 30%. What was the previous year looking like? And it
It
doesn't.
was 32% in 2018 and then 32% in 2017.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so now we'd like to close this presentation by sharing some current educational reforms and updates to help give the board a broad perspective about the educational landscape. We're going to present some laws, some state accountability measures, and just news to take into consideration. So the first one is the college and career indicator. So in 2018, 2019, the state incorporated achievement of the A through G requirements into the college and career indicator on the California School Dashboard. And this measure is based on the number of high school graduates who are prepared for college and or career. College and career readiness means completing either rigorous coursework, passing challenging exams, or receiving a state seal. And the college and career indicator is an accountability measure for the district, and every year we report our college and career readiness data to the state, who in turn publishes that information on the state dashboard for the public to view. So this is just one example of the data. This is the college and career readiness. So going back to the question that board member Uribe asked about the number of students who were prepared, the last column is for the class of 2019. We had 30 students who demonstrated that they were prepared, and then 2018 and 2017, 32.2%.
Okay, in October of 2021, Governor Newsom signed AB 469 and AB 101. So beginning in September of this year of 2022, school districts are required to ensure that seniors complete a financial aid application, either Fafsa or the California DREAM Act. And as demonstrated before, and thanks to your support, we are ahead of that in terms of preparing and learning best practices to ensure that our students complete a Fafsa application and that we increase our completion rate. There is an opt-out process for students if they choose to opt out of the process and forgo a completion, an application completion. The next assembly bill is AB.
Wait a second, we have a question.
I'm sorry.
Yes, can you tell us what is the process for students to opt out?
The process in the assembly bill, there isn't anything that is stipulated in terms of like an actual form. What the assembly bill suggests is that we provide every opportunity for a student to complete a FAFSA or the CATA, and then there needs to be I don't know if it's I would have to look into it to see if what that opt-out form or waiver or process would look like. But the district does need to make every attempt to ensure that a student completes a application. Oh, any other questions regarding AB 469? For AB 101, as Dr. Yoon mentioned earlier, this is another area or assembly bill that we have been preparing for several years. It does require 1 semester course in ethnic studies as a graduation requirement, and MUSD has been offering this course and did require this course as a graduation requirement for several years.
All right, and the state will also be allocating funds to support A through G completion. The A through G completion improvement grant is directed towards high school students in danger of not achieving a grade of C or better in A through G classes. And the funds can be used to provide professional development for staff, advising from counselors or tutoring, expanding access to classes to satisfy the A through G requirements, and also paying for advanced placement fees. So at this time, the state has the money allocated, but they're working on what each school districts will receive. So we haven't received the actual number or the amount that we'll be getting. The state is in the process of calculating that right now. And in a month or two, you'll also be seeing this plan come for your approval as part of the process of accepting these funds.
I have a question, if I may. When we talk about the A through G completion, I noticed that, for example, Downey, that's the curriculum that they're following or the requisites that they're following. However, they're not requiring that students have a grade C and above in order to pass. So is that part of the requirement, the C grade, or is it not?
So for us, at the February 2020 board meeting, the C grade was part of the requirement. But you are right, there are some districts that align it to the courses required, but they maintain the D. One example is LA Unified, Los Angeles Unified School District. They went A through G with a minimum grade of C. And due to some data or students not being able to achieve that, they did revert back to a minimum grade of D. So that is really up to our local district to decide.
And as I see that there's a grant, so as Vice President Ramirez stated, this money can go into supporting our teachers to better support them so they could better support our students.
Yes, this is the intent, is that we want to be able to increase the A through G completion for our students, and we can do it through supporting teachers or creating more programs.
And also my other question is, could it be that there is a difference between what we require, for example, for our students that are in like our community day school or our continuation school? Is there a different path? Would this affect them, or would this be different for them?
It would be a little bit different because students in either our community day or alternative school are there because they could be there because of challenges at the school, or it could be because they're so far behind in credits that they have to go to a different setting. So it may look a little bit different for students in community day or continuation school.
Okay, and what about what does this look like for our SPED community?
So for special education, for the most part, all of our special education students need to have the same access as our general education students. Mm-hmm. So for those students, it may be more pull out resources. It could be more push in with their teachers or assistants. Mm-hmm. It could be extended school year. So for the most part, and Dr. Garland can explain a little bit more, for the most part, special education students should be receiving the same opportunities as our general education students.
And this grant money could also be used to support those teachers and that department, correct?
Yeah, these monies are meant to help any students who are not getting a C or better in the A through G courses. So if they're an English learner, low income, special ed, it will benefit any student who needs to get a C or higher in A through G classes.
Okay. And Dr. Yuen, I can give you a couple numbers if that helps for Member Magana. So currently our seniors, there are 33 of them that are on the track for a completion certificate, where we have 579 seniors that would need to complete the A through G requirements.
Okay. Okay. And then as far as the PE, I see that we would be lowering it, and that's a bit of a concern for me. Personally, I think and feel that it's important for our students to remain active. And I mean, there's been several studies made about how physical activity has such a it's such a positive thing for our students, and I think it helps them. I think it helps with their focus, with their self-esteem, and so on. So personally, that's something that I would like for students to continue being active and not like less active. But overall, just thank you so much for your presentation, Dr. Ewan and Ms. Alvides. This was quite informational, so thank you very much.
Board Member Uribe?
Dr. Yuan, I have a question. So in regards to this A through G completion improvement grant, would our district receive or are districts receiving this funding if they are not A through G, if they are not an A through D district, or is this simply something that's been given to all districts to support the A through G expansion?
Yeah, so these are one-time grant monies, and it's given to all districts in California. There are two different pots. There's a little bit more money for districts that have lower A through G completion rates, and then those districts that have higher completion rates get a little bit less, but it's meant for all. And they take our student enrollment data that we submit to the state and use that to calculate the amount.
Okay, great. And then you also mentioned something that I had mentioned back in February 2020. So with LAUSD, I know that they initially had done and voted on something similar with this mandate as far as the SEER better. So do you know roughly like the data as far as students who were affected, negatively, who did not receive a diploma? This is why they now went back to the D?
No, I don't have that data. I don't have access to that data, but I can share with you that from the research that I've done, it looked like a lot of the larger districts like LA Unified up in the Bay Area, like San Jose, Santa Ana, those are more of the districts that transitioned to A through G alignment. Some of them did have some successes, and then some of them didn't. So there's a lot of research out there. If you type in, A through G alignment to high school graduation, there's a lot of research and articles about that as well.
And you also mentioned, I believe, was it Downey, that they're A through G, but they're aligned to the courses required. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so with all of these courses, with all of these school districts that are A through G aligned, their graduation requirements require that students take courses that are UC approved. So that's what they do. So same thing with Downey, they require that students take the A through G approved courses. They just require a D or higher as a minimum grade.
And speaking about Downey, I believe their implementation was a bit different. There was a rollout, right? Are you familiar with how their implementation was compared to Montebello Unified?
No, I'm not too familiar with their implementation, but we can call some people over there to ask.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how, but I know that this was done as kind of like a rollout, having one class and not necessarily mandating the entire district. So it would be worth exploring.
All right, and then thank you for the feedback. And then the last slide, just some news as well. So there's been some talks from the California State University to make changes to their admission requirements. And what they're proposing is adding another class, 1 year of quantitative reasoning. So they're thinking of having it be an additional either math course with Algebra 2 as a prerequisite, or they're even thinking maybe an additional science course beyond the 2 that's required, or even something to do with computer science, coding, engineering, and so forth. So so this has been in discussions for a couple of years. They're still researching it. I believe they're hiring a independent firm to do a study on this. But just want to let the board know that there are talks out there about raising admissions requirements from our institutions of higher education. And this concludes our presentation to the board. And are there any other questions, comments, or information that you'd like for us to discuss or possibly bring back at a later date? If there's none at this time and you think of something later, you know how to contact us. But this concludes our presentation.
Board Member Uribe has a question.
Yes, thank you. So it's not really a question. I just have a lot of notes. So one of the things as we're talking about, and just also keeping in mind that LAUSD is the largest district in the nation, right? So LAUSD tried similar approach to MUSD and we saw that there was a negative impact. So I think that's also mindful. We should be mindful of that. As we continue on with A through G, as we, explore the options. So I think it's worth noting. And also, we didn't mention much about the COVID pandemic, right? So this decision was made February 2020. And as it is, our students were already facing challenges. There was lack of resources and just the list goes on. So now I think it's worth exploring and stating that we do have a pandemic, right? So our students have only been facing larger barriers and they have also, the gaps have deepened as far as students of color. So, and there's just tons of research that's showing that there's widespread inequalities in access and opportunity facing many students of color in public schools, which is Montebello Unified. There's a number of students who have lost a parent nationwide to COVID-19, and that's staggering. So it's also important for us as policymakers to be mindful of that human aspect and part of it. There's somewhere between 37,300 and 43,000 children that have already been impacted by the loss of a parent as of February 2021. And the losses only deepen their risk for traumatic grief and also depression. So just looking into mental well-being of students is really important, and taking into just our mindset, right? Like the social isolation. What was the consequences of COVID-19? Food instability, there was loss of instruction, there was mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, homelessness increased drastically. Like I said, family losses, there were separations of families. According to the CDC, suicide increased among those 10 to 24 years old. That was a 60% increase between 2007 and 2018. And once again, being mindful, this is pre-pandemic, so I can only imagine the numbers now. And also, the known effects of quarantine and social isolation and the increased mental health that our children and youth are facing. So as an educational institution, I believe it's important that we do serve and we do recognize that we serve a historically marginalized population that was drastically and tragically impacted by COVID-19 and continues to still face those consequences. It is important that we place our priority on providing mental health resources. So I think as a board and as a district and to our leaders, I encourage us all to focus on policies that promote healthy youth development, give students access to as many choices as possible. So, of course, we all want our students to go on to higher education. We all want them to be able to attain those degrees. But we also have to realize that we have to give them those choices. We have to provide those opportunities. We can't provide, every open door, but it shouldn't be a decision that's imposed by a district. This is something that the students should decide, whether it's vocational, whether they're going into working, whether they're going to community college, what it is that they want to do. And also I see A through G as another barrier for our students. We should be opening doors for our students, not placing barriers and obstacles. And just over and over again, the research, the data, EdSource, talks about how our students are struggling. They're struggling. This pandemic is not over with. We're still enduring it. And, to make it more rigorous, it to me is just a very toxic and traumatic thing to do for our students, because we are going to affect a large majority of our students in a negative manner. Just looking at the college readiness rates, I believe it was 30% for Montebello. I mean, that's not changing, right? So we don't have a magic wand. We can't just say, hey, you know what, this is the standard and special ed students, 579. I mean, that's a large number. So what happens to those students who don't complete this? What happens to those students who are now going to be exploited because they don't have that diploma? What happens to those students who just simply are going to give up because they feel like this is just too hard? There's other things that are taking their attention, such as the global pandemic and just mental health issues. I think it's important for us to be mindful of these consequences and also how we can support our students. So that's just kind of my overall thinking behind this. I know that this was presented as a presentation, but I would like to direct staff to please bring this back as an action item where we can actually decide and just, see, is this what we should do? Is this a path that we should take? Or should we pause? Should we pause because there's so many other priorities? I mean, the teacher shortage, there's, it's so much that I really can't even get into at this point, but education has greater priorities, and I think making them more rigorous. And we as a board for the past 2 years have lowered the standard and the units and credits for high school graduation. So it doesn't really make sense for us to now say, hey, we've lowered it the past 2 years because we realized what you faced. But now all of a sudden in a few years, you have to, attain this goal. I think that we have a lot of work ahead of us for our district. We've done well, but we still have much more to do. And I just leave it at that.
Thank you, Board Member Uribe. I see Vice President Ramirez, you have your hand up.
I think for me, I'm going to disagree on the A through G being a barrier. For me, A through G, I mean, that is a requirement, doesn't allow students to opt out of an opportunity that they probably would have never had. I'm using myself as an example. I myself didn't know about A through G for 4 years and wasn't meeting those requirements accordingly. And so for me, that was an issue. And I believe if we start to lower standards or even say, you know what, we're not going to do this anymore, we're telling students, do what you want, and not giving them that that opportunity to get it done while we're in school and that chance to pass these things. It's not a huge difference. It's not a huge ask for students to be passing these classes. And I think putting that onto, not putting that on our staff and our schools to do better. I think it's us, we need to do better. I don't think it's the students. Now I understand we're in this pandemic and we're in this world where everything has changed. And while I'm against the full pause, why not push it back a year or two? I'd be okay with that because I understand the world that we're in has changed everything we've been working on. But why are we going to stop trying to move forward and innovate and give this opportunities for students? I don't think that's the right move. And I know we're not making a decision today, but I just want to make sure they're out there.
Thank you, Vice President Ramirez. I see Clerk Cabrera, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to add on to what Vice President Ramirez just shared. I think that what I am doing and what I would invite us all to do is really think about what is going to set up our students for success. And if it is these A through G requirements, again, all of that data, all of that information, which teachers are doing well, how can we learn from them? Really think about that, because I agree, it's on us as the adults to make sure we help the students reach their highest potential. I wouldn't want to start thinking about let's lower it because they're not graduating or they're not meeting the requirements. Why is it that they're not meeting these requirements? Are these requirements going to open up more doors for them and more opportunities? And if so, we need to help them reach that potential. So I would just offer my 2 cents in terms of that.
Thank you, Clerk Cabrera. Is there any more questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we can move on to number 5, presentation on Head Start governance and program leadership overview. Dr. Yuen?
Yes, thank you. So we have Mr. Daniel Orozco, Director of Head Start and Early Learning here. He's going to present the annual Head Start program and governance overview to the board. So Daniel?
Good evening, Board President Gutierrez, members of the board, Superintendent Carvana, Administrative Cabinet, and members of the audience. It is my pleasure to speak to you regarding Head Start program, particularly as it relates to leadership in government. And I would be remiss and not to say that when you look at the previous presentation, one of those areas that has proven and demonstrated school success is an investment in early education, a quality early education that is the first step towards increasing achievement. So for your consideration, I thought I would do my elevator pitch in relationship to the value that an early education, quality education provides for our youngest learners. Today's presentation is specific to the area of governance and leadership in which this governing body plays a critical role. I'm going to highlight specific items that are related to roles and responsibilities of the governing board. I'm going to utilize as much brevity as possible, but I have to tell you, brevity is not my strong suit, but know that additional information is available to you by contacting us directly, that we have a training module specific to the governing board, and we have provided you with some additional resources to assist you in getting more detailed information about the Head Start program leadership and governance model. Just to give you an idea of Head Start and who we are and who we serve, Head Start is a federally funded program. Oftentimes there are requirements that we have to follow that are not the same as our K-12 providers, but it's following the legislative mandates. Our program is a comprehensive program that we provide to children and families. We don't just look at the child and instruction exclusively. We look at the whole child and all of those factors that affect that child's learning. We address specific areas such as health, mental health, social service, parent engagement, parent involvement. And I just want to add that we were recently featured on Channel 7 News, our male involvement program. It's a dad's project. It featured our fathers or male figures who are in this child's life. It was so successful that those parents are now going to be interviewed on the Kelly Clarkson show. So I just thought I would share that. It's a really good highlight in terms of the work that we're doing and just where our focus is in relationship to supporting children and families. Our program is based on the idea of promoting school readiness by enhancing school and cognition development of children. When we look at school readiness, we just don't place the responsibility on children, but we also look at what are the service providers providing to support that child's development. Is it aligned with developmentally appropriate practices? We look at articulation with our receiving schools and schools that are feeding into programs that are feeding into our program. So it's consistent with and aligned with the master plan that Governor Newsom just released. And then lastly, our program is age and income based. For our preschool program, our target age is 4. For our EHS program, our target age is mothers who may be pregnant and children up to the age of 3 years old. We currently serve 666 Head Start children. It's 22 part-day classes and 15 full-day classes. We are currently located at 16 or 12 elementary school sites, but I have to add with excitement and enthusiasm that we have a new location that we are waiting for licensing to approve before we occupy the building, but we have a new location at our Macy Intermediate School. It will provide needed services for that geographic area of the district. So we're very excited about this location. And so there's more to come, and we would like to have you involved once we open the site. We were recently awarded Early Head Start. It's a small program, but it fills a need that is desperately required in our community. It serves infants and toddlers. It's 56 slots that we have, and it's going to be located at 5 elementary schools. And then lastly, all of our programs are developmentally based. They follow the Head Start Child Outcomes, which serves as the early learning standards. We don't look at early learning standards in early education. We look at the developmental continuum and really provide instruction based on what those child's needs are.
Mr.
This is
Rodolfo, I have a question. Can you actually go back to the previous slide? What is the age criteria for the early Head Start versus just Head Start?
So the age criteria for Head Start is preschool, and the target age is 4 years old, but we can serve children as young as 3 years old if they turn 3 before September 1st. Our early Head Start program, we can serve mothers who are pregnant and provide them with supports and resources and education while their child is while they're pregnant, and then we serve them once they are born up to 3 years of age.
Thank you.
And we're really looking to kind of create that transition for those 3-year-olds once they exit early Head Start, that they enter our Head Start program. So there's a seamless programming for our children entering Head Start and early Head Start. So this is the first slide that introduces the governance framework. As you can see, the outer dark blue band is in relation to leadership and governance, and it's the focus of what we'll be discussing today. But just to give you, and this is a conceptual sort of model of our systems, the yellow band is the scope of these systems. The leadership and governance really serves as the bedrock for our leadership and governance model. The aqua blue is the 12 management systems, and it really addresses those specific areas of service that we provide to children and families. Ultimately, our goal is to provide quality child and family outcomes. And this graphic demonstrates how these circles work collectively to inform and influence our program service delivery. The Venn diagram that I am representing on this particular slide supports our inclusive leadership model. Each group works in an interrelated manner to provide leadership, governance, and strategic direction. This particular diagram assigns the primary role that each of the governing bodies have. If you look at the far left, it refers to our policy council. Our policy council sets the program direction. And I have to say, again, in promoting parent involvement, parent advocacy, this is a really strong component that we emphasize because we really want to make sure that our parents are advocating for the best services for and education for their children. Members of our policy council are elected by parents of children who are currently in the program. And as I said, they set program direction. To the right of that is the management staff, and our role is overseeing the day-to-day operations of our program. This group consists of myself. There are 3 program specialists who handle specific areas, service areas, and I also have a Head Start manager. And then above, and the most critical component to this process is our governing body, which is you. And ultimately, you have the legal and fiscal responsibilities, including safeguarding of our federal funds. So this really represents that collaborative, interrelated approach that we take in this inclusive model of leadership. This is just to give you an idea of specific responsibilities assigned to each of the different groups of the governance model. You can see the top section, and I highlighted in yellow, are those as activities that are specific to our governing board, adopt practices to ensure active, independent, and informed governance. And then I list specific activities, select, delegate agencies and service areas for our agency, establish procedures and criteria for recruitment. There are specific things that you review and approve, and operational parts that I'm going to address in the next slide, but I just want to give you perspective that this is not an exhaustive list. It just gives you some key items that we are all held responsible. And you can see how the interrelatedness of this model is that we all support the decision-making process that addresses each of those activities. And it aligns so that the tasks ensure that there's collaboration. This model is founded on our 5-year grant cycle. Each of our grants is received to us on a 5-year cycle. And this is initiated through our refunding application, where we collect specific data points that we collect and analyze. And we then will present specific recommendations and areas of priority. And again, I'm really simplifying what this refunding application has, because there's a great deal of depth that's involved in the refunding application, but we present that to you every March for your review, so that you can see what are the priorities that have been identified and what is the data to support those priorities. But what is key is that there is this ongoing collaboration. And I just want to point out in the next slide is some of those specific activities that you should be aware of that will be coming to your attention in the upcoming coming days and weeks. And one is establishing procedures and criteria for recruitment, selection, and enrollment. Every year we look at what are our enrollment priorities. With the implementation of UPK and UTK, we might look at adjusting our recruitment to include some more 3-year-olds, since a lot of those 4-year-olds will be participating in TK, but that's something that we look at in a very intentional, data-driven way to identify what are the needs of our program and how do we best serve those children. Review results and follow-up from federal monitoring. Last year, we participated in our focus area 2 review, which we were very successful. We did have 2 board members who participated in that process, and I really appreciate the information you provided the federal reviewers, because it really helped them see that you were an informed body and understood, the processes and procedures of the Head Start program. This year, we were scheduled to do a class assessment, which is the classroom assessment scoring system. It's an observation instrument that assesses the quality of teacher-child interactions. That has been delayed until next year. And I forgot to say, we are in year 4 of the 5-year grant, and that 5-year grant is critical because that's where we really outline what we are projecting to accomplish and what our priorities are for that year 5. The refunding application, as I said, will be available to you in March for your review and feedback before it's submitted to the Office of Head Start for their approval. The EHS Early Head Start grant was already submitted to you. It's on a different timeline because it was awarded in March, so that was actually due in November. And just be aware that our annual report, which narrates and outlines our activities from the previous year, will be posted to the website and will be provided to you through a board memo shortly. Also, our community assessment, which looks at the demographic area, some of the items that you referred to in the previous presentation in terms of English language learners, homeless children, or children who require subsidies. That's part of that refunding application data and community assessment that you will be receiving in the upcoming days. That was just recently completed. And then I just want to add one last item. Again, these are just, I highlighted a couple of quick things, is the idea of the non-federal share. For every dollar we receive from the Office of Head Start or the federal government, we are required to provide in kind for 20 cents of each of those dollars, which means we have to either obtain volunteer work, our parents provide additional support to children. We recently were able to establish a collaboration with the City of Montebello to utilize one of their sites for our EHS center at no cost. So all of those items we can claim as non-federal share. I mention this only because this last year we had to apply for a waiver because we weren't able to meet our non-federal share allocation, and that's because of COVID, and we were limited in terms of participation from anyone from the outside. So just wanted to make you aware of that. And then lastly, I kind of said it earlier, is just remember that 90% of the child's brain develops before entering kindergarten. So the greatest investment we can make in making sure that our children in Montebello are successful in not just in their choices of going to universities or college, but just what is success in life is affected by quality early childhood education programs. So we'll be sharing more in terms about some of those investments and what this will be looking like moving forward in terms of other programs that are available. And these are a couple of resources that I believe were sent to you prior, and it outlines some of these specific items that are related to the roles and responsibility to you as the governing body. And again, I just want to express my appreciation for your support, your leadership, and for your review and feedback for any initiatives that we send to you. Most of our communications come to you either through a board memo, a board action, and then our policy council president provides you with a monthly report in terms of expenditures, enrollment, and other various items. So again, esteemed school board, I end with my appreciation and gratitude for the support and leadership that you provide to our program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Orozco, for your presentation. I see Board Member Uribe, you have your hand up.
Yes, Mr. Orozco, I just wanted to congratulate you and the Head Start team on the amazing recognition that you're going to get and that you have received on your male involvement program. So congratulations and just keep up the great work.
Thank you. We really appreciate that recognition from you and from the board. It's really important, that we hear that because, again, we see the benefit, and it's great to hear you validate that you also see that benefit of early education and the work that we do in Head Start. So thank you. I appreciate the comment.
Yes, and definitely let us know when that show airs on the Dads Project.
Absolutely. We were really surprised that we got a call from Kelly Clarkson's production team saying that they wanted to interview one of the parents. And I don't know if you saw the feature that was on Channel 7, but it's on our website. So that individual who spoke is the person to be interviewed. And he was very articulate in terms of communicating the importance that he places on supporting his children in Head Start.
Definitely, that is amazing. Thank you so much, Mr. Orozco. Is there any questions or comments from the board?
Madam President, if I may.
Of course.
So I also just want to thank you, Mr. Orozco, for your enthusiasm. Your presentations are great because I can tell that you truly care and you're very involved in this program. So I very much appreciate, when members of our faculty are just so enthused to present something, right? It shows your commitment. So thank you so much. And definitely, I'm a firm believer in early childhood education. Formerly, I used to teach in a recreational setting, Tiny Twos and preschool. So I know that social skills start developing very early and those motor skills as well. So thank you so much for the work that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate the fact that you are also have background and knowledge in the field of early education. Thank you.
All right, hearing no other questions or comments, we'll go ahead and move on to item number 6, the Los Angeles County Office of Education, legal comments. I would like to call on Mr. Bill McGuire.
Good morning, members of the board. We are pleased to let you know that the county office has concurred with the district's positive certification. That's a great thing moving forward. They have some issues relative to deficit spending and declining enrollment, which you are all aware of and handling. We also want to comment on the great job the administration is doing in getting positions filled. It's a significant number of management positions filled and moving forward in finalizing the chief financial officer role as well in the district. So all of those things are boding well for the district and want to congratulate you on moving forward on those items. That's the end of our comments today.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire. Next will be item number 7, public comment. I would like to have legal counsel. Do we have any public comment?
Thank you, President Gutierrez. We do not have any written public comments that we received. Dr. Yuan, do we have any pre-registered or public comments in real time?
Yeah, I have 3 who called in earlier, and then I'll start with that, and then we'll pause for a minute to see if there's any real time. So I'll start first with Marina Martinez-Smith calling about a Sure High School issue. All right, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Ms. Gutierrez, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Savarna, Dr. Yuan, and members of the executive cabinet. Happy New Year. Hope you had a restful holiday, and it is my sincerest hope that you and those you love are healthy and safe. Thank you to all those who contributed to having Sure High School painted. Our campus and second home to many looks fantastic. Yesterday, students were ecstatic to return from the extended winter recess and see their school painted and thrilled with the new furniture in the classroom. Thank you again. If we could continue the cleanup of our campus with the removal of gum stains from the ground throughout the entire campus, the repair of our sports fields, and the reimbursement to our programs who had fundamental equipment thrown out during the fumigation and sanitation of our campus, the teachers and students would be grateful, and learning could finally reach its full potential and not just make do with what is available. So far, second semester has had a rough start. On the first day of our return to school, the Wi-Fi was down in C building. Bathrooms were uncleaned because half of our skeletal custodial staff was out quarantining, and teachers are still not being paid in a timely and consistent manner. Please explain why teachers are held to deadlines that no other position in the district are held to. I would like to understand why teachers are still waiting for pay for 1/6 that began in October and November, per diem class size violation stipends for classes that are over 34 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or more students, professional development, and department collaboration pay. No one present today can walk out of a store with merchandise that has not been paid for. Why can the district? In regards to substitute CSO and custodial shortage, what is the solution? Is it possible to reach out to surrounding universities to see if we can work something out with the child development majors and credentialing programs to see if they can substitute for units or work off their loans? What is the status on hiring custodians and CSOs or finding another solution? At this point, solutions should be proactive and not reactive. Lastly, when considering why students are not passing, please remember that we are living in a pandemic and things are not normal, no matter how hard we try to provide normalcy on our campuses. Furthermore, Sure High School's numbers in English have improved annually except for 1 year. The district's math program needs more support, especially with Algebra 1, with a C or better is going to be a graduation requirement. All right now is teacher driven in high school. And tonight we were asked to cull data that could easily have been collected by the all leadership. Thank you so much for your time. Good night.
All right, next we have Catherine Salais calling about CSCA negotiations. All right, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Board of Education and district officials. I am calling in this evening to express my concern with the CSCA negotiations. Not only am I a proud CSCA member, I'm also a parent to 2 students at different grade levels in the district, and I'm fully aware of the contributions from our members. It is a hit to our morale when the district does not believe that we are entitled to an ongoing raise, instead keeping us at stagnant wages while everyday markers such as inflation, housing, and gas continue to rise. With the CARES Act supporting MUSC with over $150 million in funds, the district should be fiscally responsible enough to provide us with a wage increase from our standard operating budget. While we are hiring new employees with inflated salaries, it is important to remember the work and time that our current employees have dedicated to this district. With the recent flood of COVID-19 released to our district, current CSCA members have yet to be compensated for the additional work that continues to be added to our other duties, as many of us are responsible for the safe reopening of our schools. Since our return to campus with students, I have become a contact tracer, a COVID-19 confirmation employee. I conduct daily wellness checks. I assist teachers in campus security with students who do not follow the safety guidelines, all in addition to my regular responsibilities. Oftentimes, the new directives from district come with little support, and we are left to figure out the details and logistics on our campuses. In addition, we have not been provided with the tools to tackle the emotional distress our students are in from this ongoing pandemic. Our CSCA workers are oftentimes the first line of contact. Secretaries who stock goodies for students who drop in for a warm hello, attendance techs who go beyond the simple clearing of absences but express a genuine concern for our students, speaking to families for an extended amount of time, getting them resources that are much needed, yard aides to comfort children when they're having a bad day. This is all above and beyond what we are paid for. While these things are not done for the recognition, we are asking that when it comes time for contract negotiations, you keep in mind the work of our CSC members keep our district running. Thank you for your time.
All right, and at this time, I'll take a look at the participants to see if there are any hands raised.
I see 2 hands up, Dr. Yuan.
Yes, so we have Jessica as well. So Mr. Chen, if you can give access to Jessica to speak.
Jessica, you can talk now.
All right, go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Happy New Year. As the A through G requirements are being reviewed, I wanted the board to remember that we have diverse learners that make up our student body. As the decision-making body of our district, I want you to remember that we have students who excel, meet benchmarks, and those who need extra support and differentiation in order to become college and career ready. I want you to keep in mind that creating a mandate will not raise achievement, but examining our school structures and creating opportunities will create the improvement we need. We have an abundance of students who are newcomers with limited English proficiency, English learners, special education students, students who are homeless, students with social and emotional needs that affect their academic progress. We have great work being done with our Futures and Veil programs that may not have a high rate of A through G passage rate, but the staff has worked hard to support students to help them graduate with a high school diploma. If we want to improve our A through G passage rate, then let's look at investing at the following. A newcomer center to help support our students with limited to no English proficiency. Do you know how many we have throughout the district? Do you know how many newcomers enter our district as a high school student? A through G requirement for a high school student with no English or limited English is closing the door of opportunity. A through G should be the goal, not the mandate. Class size, so that teachers can lower class size, so that teachers can create relationships and differentiate learning to meet the needs of all learners. Counselors, having the extra counselors at the secondary level has increased the support that students have. Let's keep this going. The master schedule, let's get creative and expand our A through G course offerings so that students have more choices. Is the messaging coming from the district office matching the actions and supports that are being provided to our school sites? Social workers are needed to help support students' needs and to help with the social emotional support. Community schools, let's look at the efforts of the support that MHS is receiving with the expansion of these services with the grant given to the MTA that the MTA received to help community schools expand throughout the district. Students need their basic needs met in order to be able to focus on learning. Parent engagement. How do we get more parents to participate in our efforts? Is our infrastructure in place? Wi-Fi, water accessibility, security, havoc, heat? Are we using our various funding sources to help expand our support services, hire personnel and offerings in a timely manner throughout the district? Are you aware of the journey each action item takes to get to the board depending on the funding source? Adult school. Let's keep working at expanding and providing programs that lead to careers for those not interested in going to college. I believe we all share a common goal of seeing our students leave MUSD college and career ready. We want to see the data improve. In order to develop this into results, we need you, our leaders and decision makers, to not look to mandates, but to help ask questions, direct and oversee how we can work together to improve, change, and create opportunities within our school structures. This
All right,
will
thank you.
produce the
That is 3
improved results
minutes.
we all envision.
Thank you. All right, next we have a DF. I remember, if I recall, that's Debbie Ferguson. So Jonathan, if you can please allow Debbie to speak.
Yes, Debbie, you can talk now.
Thank you, Kevin, for remembering. Yes, it just puts DF. Good evening to everyone. Boy, that's a tough act to follow, Jessica. That was awesome. 100% agree with you. Do want to say that Marina's summary of Sure High School, we have some really good stuff and some not so good stuff. But I do want to say thank you to everyone for our careful reopening of the district. That was awesome. I do want to respond to the A through G presentation. I know it was mentioned that there was input given. I'd like to know what input was collected from the special education side of things, particularly teachers. I don't think it's in any way, shape, or form appropriate for SDC students, not RSP, but SDC. I really like Ms. Uribe's comments, and I don't think it's a matter of raising the standards or lowering the standards. It's about choices. Giving kids choices. College was never meant for everyone. And our career side of it gets smaller and smaller with fewer and fewer CTE opportunities available to our students. In regards to algebra, listen to the teachers, as board member Ramirez said. And Dr. Skvarna saying it's a foundational skills issue. Yes, when kids have to take algebra, when I started in the district, our special education population took pre-algebra in 9th grade. They didn't take algebra, they took pre-algebra. And that year was spent building those foundational skills that they were missing. Why can't we do that now? Yes, and algebra is a requirement, but why does it have to be 9th grade? Give them a year to establish those foundational skills that they're missing. We see on the board agenda for tonight, 7E, that we're buying materials for advanced math. What about supplemental materials for the special ed population that we have to provide out of pocket or on our own time? We have a wide range of students, including our special ed population, and we have to take into consideration all of it. So I am not in favor of the A through G mandate. It's, as Jessica said, it's a goal and should not be a mandate. Thank you for your time, and everybody have a lovely, happy New Year.
All right, and I don't see any other hands raised, and there are no calls into the line either. Oh, actually, I see a I see a Leticia Martinez. So Jonathan, Mr. Chen, can you please give Leticia access? Thank you.
Ms. Martinez, you're able to talk now.
Looks like
Leticia?
you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. Madam President Gutierrez, members of the board, executive cabinet, and members of the community. My name is Leticia Martinez, better known as Leti. I am speaking today in regards to wages for classified employees. I have been employed by MUSD as a school bus driver in the transportation department for 24 years. Montebello has been my second home. I started my career as a professional school bus driver at the age of 21. Driving is my passion, and taking children to school to get educated is what I do best. Although some may argue that I'm a low-skilled laborer, my job requires great responsibility. I not only deal with irresponsible, distracted driving, but I'm also in charge of the safety of the children on my bus. And I would like to remind everyone that the cargo I carry is precious. I ask you, as a child, were you ever a bus rider or know of anyone who has ever needed transportation to school? If the answer is yes, think about the service we all provide here at MUSD for our MUSD families. Transportation has been at the front line since the whole pandemic began by providing meals, continuing athletics, and other services for our children. Therefore, I stand before you asking for a raise. Classified employees need to know that we are valued, that our work matters, and that we always produce high quality work. Our pay has remained stagnant for many years, and has placed the burden of inflation on our shoulders. As prices rise for everyday necessities, it makes some ends difficult to meet. Our jobs matter just as much as yours do. It is important that we feel wanted and valued. That is why we need a stable, ongoing raise. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
All right, again, I don't see any other hands raised and there are no calls into the line.
Legal counsel, do you advise us to give it a minute or should I move on?
I think we can move on because during the time that the other speakers spoke, other members could have raised their hand. We could move on.
Perfect. Thank you so much, legal counsel. At this time, we are going to consider item number 8A, ratification of the Memorandum of Understanding between Montebello Unified School District and the Montebello Teacher Association regarding rating in Los Angeles County Infant Orthopedic Impairment, Visual Impairment, Orientation, and Mobility Specialist, July 2019. I would like to call on Ms. Hakopian.
Good evening, Madam President Gutierrez, esteemed board members, Superintendent Dr. Skavarnam, MUSD leadership, and community participants. The Montebello Unified School District and Montebello Teachers Association met to negotiate the rating in of the Los Angeles County Infant Orthopedic Impairment, Visual Impairment, Orientation, and Mobility Specialists who were rated in July of 2019 on the salary schedule reflecting no loss of pay. In addition, teachers will receive Montebello Unified School District credit on the salary schedule and for calculation of retirement health benefits for years served in the district while under the employment of Los Angeles County. It is recommended that the Board of Education ratifies this MOU as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hakopian. Is there a motion to approve this item?
Okay.
Is there a second? I'm sorry, who was that?
I'm sorry, Board President. It was me, Board Member Magaña.
Perfect, thank you. I'll do a roll call vote. Vice President Ramirez?
Aye.
Clerk Cabrera,
Aye.
Board Member Magaña,
Aye.
Board Member Uribe,
Aye.
and an aye for me as well. That motion is carried. At this time, we are going to consider item number 8B, resolution number 16, authorizing electronic meeting of the Governing Board of Education during a state of emergency pursuant to Government Code Section 54953E. I would like to call on legal counsel.
Thank you, President Gutierrez. Good evening, President Gutierrez, members of the board, and members of the executive cabinet. Before you this evening is a resolution that would make the determination necessary to invoke AB 361 and allow this governing board to continue to meet electronically for the next 30 days. The resolution makes the necessary findings. Accordingly, the recommendation is to approve and ratify the following motion: that the Board of Education approve resolution number 16, 2021 through 2022, authorizing electronic meetings of the governing board in education during a state of emergency pursuant to Government Code Section 54953 subsection E. The resolution would make the determination necessary to invoke AB 361 and would allow the governing board to meet electronically for the next 30 days. In order to continue to meet electronically beyond that time, the board would need to reaffirm that the emergency continues to directly impact the ability of members to meet safely in person. And that is a recommended motion.
Thank you, legal counsel. Is there a motion to approve this item?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Let's do a roll call vote. Vice President Ramirez,
Aye.
Clerk Cabrera,
Aye.
Board Member Magaña,
Aye.
Board Member Uribe,
Aye.
and an aye for me as well. That motion is carried. Are there any items to be pulled from the consent agenda for further discussion and or action? Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion and a second for the approval of the consent agenda as present?
Motion.
Is there a second? I'll go ahead and second it. Roll call vote. Vice President Ramirez,
Sorry, I had to restart my mic. Aye.
no worries. Clerk Cabrera,
Aye.
Board Member Magaña,
Aye.
Board Member Uribe,
Aye.
and an aye for me as well. That motion is carried. Okay, at this time, I would like to call on Mr. Ellington.
Good evening again. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, executive cabinet, our superintendent, co-workers, and members of our community. Tonight, we bring the first reading of our proposed updated board bylaw 9270, conflict of interest. It provides transparency to ensure accountability for district officials. We will be bringing this item back at a future board meeting for approval.
Perfect. And then just for clarification, Mr. Ellington, you do need a consensus and a vote for the first reading, correct?
It's just a first reading, ma'am.
Okay,
We'll be bringing this back on the February 2nd meeting.
Perfect, thank you. Is there a motion and a second to approve the first reading of the board bylaw 9270 Exhibit B?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Vice President Ramirez?
Aye.
Clerk Cabrera?
Aye.
Board Member Magaña?
Aye.
Board Member Uribe?
Aye.
And an aye for me as well. That motion is carried. At this time, we are going to do Board of Education member and Superintendent of School reports. I would like to call on Board Member Uribe.
Thank you. I apologize. My computer's lagging a little bit, but good evening, everyone. For those of you still with us. First of all, I just want to thank everyone who just spoke. We are definitely hearing your concerns. Thank you for your feedback. That allows us just to be more informed and also just go back to the drawing table and look to see how we can improve things ultimately for our students. So thank you for sharing feedback this evening. I also just want to welcome back our staff and students. If anyone's online listening, welcome back from winter break. I've heard nothing but positive things, so that's just great to hear. And lastly, I want to wish my little boy, Joaquin, my baby, a happy early birthday. He turns 8 this weekend. So Joaquin, when you watch this and you're older, mommy loves you. That concludes my board member report.
Thank you, Board Member Uribe. Next, I would like to call Board Member Magaña.
Hello, everyone. Thank you to everyone that's joined us. I especially want to thank our teachers, our CSCA. Thank you so much for working with us and helping us delay our opening. This has been a very challenging time for everyone, and you all have really stepped up to the plate in helping us. So thank you so much for that. Thank you so much to our parents. Thank you for your patience. Thank you to our students. Thank you just for, just for adapting and for being so resilient during this difficult time. And special thanks to our principals. I know that you have all been tasked with so much responsibility. Thank you to our cabinet. I've seen you all, our directors, I've seen you all run around this district office trying to get things done. Delaying the reopening was challenging. It wasn't an easy decision, but I think it was the best decision. And so most importantly, I want to thank our leader, Mr. Scavarna. Thank you so much for taking that brave step to make this decision and putting our students first. I think it was a very challenging decision, but I think it was an important and it was the right decision. I think there's nothing more precious to anybody than our students and their health. So thank you so much for being brave. Thank you so much for that video. Thank you for the interviews. The news outlets have gotten us just positive feedback. I've heard nothing but good things. So thank you for that. Other than that, we are listening. There are some difficult decisions to be made ahead of us, and know that we always are thinking about our students first. And I'm really happy to see the painting that is happening at Shore High School and at Bell Gardens. So and I want to congratulate my colleagues for it's been a long time since we've had a group of members that have really come together to put our students first, to make these differences, to make these changes that our communities deserve. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Board Member Magaña. Next, I would like to call on Clerk Cabrera.
Buenas noches, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well and staying safe. I want to echo some of what my colleague, Board Member Magaña, shared. I really want to thank our staff and just the entire community for coming together, collaborating, and just working with us as the decision was made to delay the start of the second semester. And, everything from making sure we had the kits to how to distribute them, to parents coming and picking them up, making sure students got tested. So it was definitely a community effort. And I just want to thank everyone for that, especially also the staff, because I know a lot of planning went into that. Y solo quiero compartir unas palabras en español por si tenemos algunas personas, algunos padres en especial que estén con nosotros esta noche. La verdad que quiero decir lo que acabo de decir también en español. Me da muchísimo gusto que colaboramos, que nos ayudaron a regresar a clases de la mejor manera que lo pudimos hacer. Sabemos que no puede ser perfecto, pero asegurándonos de que nuestros estudiantes y todos estuvieran negativos para de esa manera poder protegerlos más. Así es de que muchísimas gracias, se agradece muchísimo y hay que seguir colaborando. And with that, that's my report.
Thank you, Clerk Cabrera. Next, I would like to call on Vice President Ramirez.
Good evening, everybody. Again, I want to just reiterate what my colleagues are saying about our staff by stepping up and getting ready for distributing of materials and tests and really getting our schools ready to go for the new year. And I want to shout out to teachers too. I know we're missing lots of students in the classroom right now because of COVID, and you're making those adjustments and pivoting in your lessons to accommodate our students. So I really wanted to shout you out and thank you so much. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, Vice President. Dr. Skvarna, are there any comments you would like to say?
Yes, please. I am very, very pleased with the way the community responded to the difficult decisions we had to make, and I believe that the community understands that the board certainly always puts their students first. The teachers do, the classified folks, our management team. I'm very proud of the way that everyone's handled that, all of our employees. I hear what the classified folks have said about salary increases. I've heard what the teachers have said about salary increases. I know how the management feels about salary increases. You have a strong advocate for all of your work, and those advocates are the governing board and myself. So it doesn't go without consideration. I think above and beyond, and maybe I don't think it fell through the cracks for me because I know the length of time, but to get the first interim report approved with such positivity is really a wonderful thing for this district, and to be backfilling positions that have been vacant for multiple years. And I know that I can cause difficulty sometimes to, some of the personnel issues, but I want all of these positions filled, and I want a lot of the classified positions filled back. So I'm going to be unrelenting on that, so that this district can hold its head up high, and I believe Mr. McGuire feels that way, and actually is far better off fiscally than many, many other districts in LA County. A real source of pride that should be to the governing board, and certainly I take my hat off to the fiscal folks in this district. So thank you very much, and that's the comments for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Skvarna. And I just want to say as well, to reiterate what my colleagues have mentioned, I really want to say thank you so much to everyone in MUSD, to the parents, the students, everyone. Like Clerk Cabrera mentioned, it really did take a whole community to make and put our students first. From making sure that we got our test kits for our students, to ensuring that the coming back of second semester was safe, and we took all the precautions necessary. I want to thank all the schools who coordinated our distributions. Thank you so much. It really, really did take a team effort. I really want to thank the cabinet. I saw the hard work that you did before the return of the semester. You worked countless hours answering phone calls, answering our colleagues' messages. And thank you so much. And also Dr. Skvarna, thank you so much for leading this board and this district, and really ensuring that we put our students' safety first and our staff safety. And that's something that we really want to ensure, that our students come first and our staff is safe. And I just want to let the community and our staff know that we are always listening. I can never say this enough. Like, we are always listening. I hear you all on social media. I hear you all in public comment. Everything that you say, everything you bring up, it's something that we always take into consideration and talk to cabinet and staff about. So just thank you so much. It really takes a team effort. To anyone who currently has COVID and hasn't been able to return to school, I really wish you a speedy recovery, so that way you can come back into our school classrooms. And for our teachers that are in our classrooms dealing with COVID, thank you so much for everything that you're doing. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for being the educators. Thank you for being those heroes in our classrooms. And for our classified, who is there at the forefront, helping out students, our custodians, everyone who helped out paint and beautify our schools. Thank you so much. Even our translators, y'all have been working hard with translating documents, videos, letters to our families, and to Mr. Barnuevo, always being there for PR. So thank you so much for everyone. I can go on, but with that being said, at this time, I would like to have a motion and a second to recess into closed session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? I think I
Second.
heard, okay, Vice President Ramirez, roll call vote. Vice President Ramirez,
Aye.
Clerk Cabrera,
Aye.
Board Member Magaña,
Aye.
Board Member Uribe,
Aye.
and an aye for me as well. That motion is carried. We're gonna go into closed session. All right, we are back. I would like to reconvene this meeting at 8:25 p.m. Let's see who is present. Vice President Ramirez,
Present.
Clerk Cabrera,
Present.
Board Member Magaña,
Present.
Board Member Uribe,
Present.
and I'm present as well. Legal counsel, please provide the closed session report out.
Yes, thank you, President Gutierrez. We convened into closed session at 8:18 p.m. Initially present via video conference were President Gutierrez, Vice President Ramirez, Clerk Cabrera, Board Member Magaña, Board Member Uribe, Council Copado, Dr. Scavarna, Dr. Ewan, Dr. Garland, Mr. Ellingson, and Ms. Hakopian, as well as Mr. McGuire. At 8:19 p.m., members of the Executive Cabinet and Mr. McGuire exited closed session discussions. As to item A1, as listed in the closed session agenda, members of the board were briefed and provided an update. By majority consensus, settlement authority was approved. No final action was taken. Nothing further to report on this matter. As to item B, a brief update and briefing was provided to members of the board. No reportable final action was taken. Nothing further to report. Closed session discussions concluded at 8:24 p.m. and that concludes my report.
Thank you, legal counsel. It is now 8:27, and I would like to have a motion and a second to adjourn tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Perfect. Roll call vote. Vice President Ramirez.
Aye.
Clerk Cabrera.
Aye.
Board Member Magaña.
Aye.
Board Member Uribe.
Aye.
And an aye for me as well. That motion is carried. The next regular meeting is Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022 at 6. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.